The radio wasn't supposed to be on. It was midnight, and Lucas had just come home from his late shift at the gas station. The air was quiet, heavy with that stillness that only small towns have at night. His little one-bedroom apartment sat at the edge of Maple Street, an old building that always creaked when the wind blew. He closed the door softly, dropped his keys on the table, and froze. The old radio sitting by the window, the one he never used, crackled to life. At first, it was just static. Then a woman's voice whispered through the fuzz, slow and trembling, like she was standing right beside the mic. Lucas, his name. She said his name. Lucas's chest tightened. He turned toward the sound, staring at the dusty old radio that hadn't worked in years. The voice came again, clearer this time. "Don't look behind you." The words were soft but sharp enough to freeze him where he stood. He wanted to run. His instinct screamed it, but his curiosity rooted him in place. He slowly turned his head. Nothing, just the faint hum of the refrigerator. Lucas exhaled shakily, rubbing his forehead. "Okay, I'm losing it," he muttered. He crossed the room, turned the knob on the radio, but it wouldn't shut off. Static hissed louder. The voice was gone, replaced by faint music. A lullaby. It was the same one his mother used to sing before she disappeared 15 years ago. His fingers went cold. He unplugged the radio. The light went out. Silence filled the room. Then, just as he turned away, the music started again. Unplugged. Still playing. That's when he noticed a reflection in the window. A figure behind him, blurry, swaying to the tune. Lucas spun around, but the room was empty. The lullaby stopped. A whisper close to his ear. "You're not supposed to be here tonight." The radio clicked off on its own. That night, Lucas couldn't sleep. Every small sound, the pipes, the creaks, the ticking of his clock, felt amplified. He finally drifted off near dawn, his heart still racing. The next morning, his neighbor Mrs. Hensley knocked on his door. Her eyes were red, her face pale. "Lucas," she said quietly, "did you hear the radio last night?" He blinked, confused. "You heard it too?" She nodded. Everyone in the building did. It was broadcasting the same thing, your name. Lucas felt a chill crawl down his spine. That's not possible. It's an old analog set. It doesn't even pick up stations anymore. Mrs. Hensley looked down at her shaking hands. "Well, something was broadcasting. My husband said he heard a woman singing. Then he swore he saw someone standing in our hallway." Lucas shut the door and leaned against it, trying to steady his breathing. For the rest of the day, he avoided the radio. But when night came, he found himself drawn to it again, the same way someone stares at fire even though they know it can burn them. He sat on the couch, staring at it across the room. The moonlight made its metallic surface gleam faintly. Hours passed. Nothing happened, until the clock struck 12:01 a.m. Click. The dial moved on its own. Static. Then a faint hum. Then a different voice. A man's this time. "You shouldn't have listened," it said. Lucas's breath caught in his throat. "Who is this?" The voice chuckled softly. "We've been trying to reach you, Lucas. You're the only one who still tunes in." "I didn't tune in," he shouted. "Yes." The voice replied, quieter now. "You did. Every time you're alone." Lucas backed away slowly, his heartbeat thundering in his ears. "What do you mean?" The voice changed, becoming layered, like more than one person speaking at once. "The radio only plays when you're alone." Click. The radio went silent again. Lucas turned toward the window, his reflection staring back at him. But something was wrong. His reflection was smiling, and he wasn't. Lucas stumbled back, nearly tripping over the rug. His heart pounded so loud it drowned out every other sound. He blinked hard, rubbing his eyes, but when he looked again, his reflection was still smiling. Only now, it was moving closer to the glass. The reflection's lips parted like it was whispering something he couldn't hear. Lucas stared, frozen in disbelief. Then, faintly, he heard it, the same voice that had spoken to the radio. "You should have turned it off sooner." Lucas grabbed the lamp beside him and hurled it at the window. The glass didn't break. It didn't even crack. Instead, the reflection tilted its head and stopped smiling. Now it looked angry. The lights in the apartment flickered. The air grew heavy, buzzing with electricity. The unplugged radio turned itself on again, the same lullaby playing. Only this time it was slower, distorted. He backed toward the door, fumbling for his keys. But when he reached the doorknob, it was ice cold, frozen solid, like it hadn't been touched in years. He yanked at it, desperate to get out, but it wouldn't budge. Then came the static, sharp and painful, like white noise cutting through his skull. He clutched his ears and screamed, but the sound was inside his head now. And through that static came her voice again, the same soft whisper from the first night. "Lucas, don't leave me alone again." He froze. His stomach twisted. That voice, it wasn't just familiar, it was impossible. It was his mother. He turned toward the radio, trembling. "Mom!" The lullaby stopped. The voice on the other end sighed. "You shouldn't have turned it off, Lucas. You left me here." Lucas dropped to his knees, his hands shaking. "Mom, you're gone. You disappeared when I was a kid." Silence. Then a faint giggle echoed through the static. "I didn't disappear," she whispered. "You stopped listening." The radio clicked. The dial spun faster than before, flipping through stations, music, news, static, until finally the sound of breathing filled the air. Slow, steady, coming from inside the room. Lucas looked around. The radio light flickered, reflecting faintly in the window, but this time the reflection wasn't his at all. A woman stood behind him in the glass, tall, with long, dark hair and hollow eyes. "Mom," he whispered. The figure stepped closer to the other side of the glass. Her mouth moved, but no words came out, only the hiss of the radio matching her lips. Lucas's body shook. "What do you want from me?" The radio answered for her. "To remember." The light in the radio turned blood red. Lucas screamed, lunged forward, and yanked the cord from the wall. Sparks flew, and everything went dark. The apartment was silent, except for his ragged breathing. He stumbled backward, panting, gripping his chest. He was alone again, or so he thought. A knock echoed through the room. 3 slow knocks, but not from the door. It came from inside the radio. He stared at it, frozen in terror, as the knocking grew louder until it stopped. Then, faintly, through the static, came a whisper so clear it could have been right behind him. "Lucas, open it." The sound wasn't coming from the speaker anymore. It was coming from inside the metal casing, like something was trapped in there, waiting to get out. Lucas grabbed a screwdriver from the kitchen drawer, his hands trembling. "This isn't real," he muttered. "It's just my head." He knelt down beside the radio. The air felt colder now, heavier, like the whole room was holding its breath. He unscrewed the back panel slowly. Click, click, click. When the final screw fell to the floor, the knocking stopped. For a second, there was only silence. Then, something small rolled out from inside the radio. A child's tooth. Lucas stared at it, his face pale. Then a whisper, faint, distant, drifted out from the speaker. "More are coming." The lights flickered again. His reflection in the window returned, but now there were 2 reflections behind him, a man and a woman, both staring straight at him, unmoving. And this time, when Lucas blinked, they didn't. Lucas didn't move. He didn't breathe. The air around him had gone completely still, thick with the kind of silence that makes your ears ring. The 2 reflections behind him, the man and woman, stood perfectly still in the glass, faces blank and pale, eyes black like ink. Then, without warning, the woman blinked. Lucas stumbled back, hitting the kitchen counter. His heart pounded so hard he could feel it in his neck. "No," he whispered. "This isn't real." But the reflections didn't vanish. The woman's lips began to move, soundlessly, and then the radio clicked back on, filling the room with soft static that morphed into her whisper. "You let us stay here too long." The man's head turned toward her in the reflection, slow and creaky, like his neck hadn't been used in years. The sound of that movement echoed through the room, even though the real space behind Lucas was empty. He stared at the glass, frozen between disbelief and panic. "Stay here? What are you talking about?" The man's reflection opened his mouth, And this time Lucas's voice came out through the radio. "We waited for you." Lucas's legs nearly gave out. He crawled backward until his spine hit the far wall. The unplugged radio flickered, the dials twisting on their own. The same old lullaby began playing again, but slower, warped, like it was being played backward. And over it, he heard whispering, layers of whispers, a dozen voices, maybe more, overlapping. He couldn't make out what they were saying, but every now and then he heard one word clearly. Home. Stay. Remember. Lucas's eyes darted toward the old family photo on the shelf, the one he'd been meaning to throw away for months. His mom, his dad, and himself at age 6, smiling in front of the same radio. His throat went dry. No, that's impossible. The woman in the reflection smiled. The smile didn't reach her eyes. You remember now. The reflection reached a hand toward the glass, and the surface rippled like water. Lucas screamed and grabbed the photo frame, hurling it at the window. The glass didn't shatter. Instead, the reflection's hand came through. Cold, wet fingers brushed his cheek. He scrambled up, slamming the light switch, but the bulbs just flickered, dim blue, unnatural. Shadows warped across the walls, bending and twisting. Then the man stepped out of the reflection, too. His face was clearer now, and Lucas realized with pure horror that it was his father. But his father had died 10 years ago. The figure's voice came from the radio, each word dripping with static. You left her here. Lucas, you left us. Tears welled in his eyes. I didn't. You both were gone. The police said. His father's voice cut through him like a blade. They never found us because we never left. The woman, his mother, tilted her head, her long hair floating slightly, as if she were underwater. Listen, she whispered. You still can. She pointed toward the radio. The static grew louder, almost deafening now. Lucas clutched his ears, screaming for it to stop, but then he heard something beneath the static. A faint voice. Small, familiar. It was his own as a child. Mommy, it's dark. I can't get out. Lucas froze, every muscle locking up. The radio light pulsed red, keeping rhythm with his heartbeat. The child's voice continued, panicked now. Mommy, please. The train's coming. Then a loud bang shook the apartment, like a door slamming shut from nowhere. The radio sparked. The room flickered black and white, like an old film reel. And suddenly, for just 1 second, Lucas wasn't in his apartment anymore. He was standing in a train tunnel. The walls dripped with water. His reflection in the shiny steel rails showed a younger version of himself, maybe 10 years old, holding a flashlight. The child turned his head slowly, his eyes completely white. Then his voice echoed from everywhere at once. You should have never turned it off. The radio static roared like thunder. The scene blinked, and Lucas was back in his apartment, gasping on his knees. The radio was still on. Only this time, the voice was clear, calm, and terrifyingly close. We're almost home. Lucas turned, and both reflections were gone from the window. But behind him, the floorboards creaked. He spun around. The apartment was empty. Then, another creak. Closer. And another. The radio dial turned by itself, clicking to a dead channel filled with faint breathing. Then the voice spoke again, right into his ear this time. Don't turn around. Lucas froze. His body stiffened with pure dread. Every hair on his neck stood up, and then, softly, the same lullaby began playing behind him.